The Galactic Empire had existed for so long that most species inside it could not imagine a universe without its presence. For centuries, it had grown across the stars like a calm rising tide. It rarely used force. It did not need to. Most civilizations joined willingly, believing life under the Empire would be easier. Some resisted at first, but eventually accepted the gentle authority that guided thousands of worlds. The Empire believed it understood every kind of species that could exist: timid ones, aggressive ones, curious ones, logical ones. After thousands of years of contact with so many cultures, the Empire was sure it had seen everything. That belief changed the year they first noticed humanity. It started with a simple report sent to the Imperial Expansion Office. A scout probe, on its usual mapping route, scanned an unexpected cluster of colonies on the edge of an unimportant spiral arm. The message said, "New developing species detected. Rapid growth rate. Unusual energy signatures. Recommend observation." Normally, such reports were common and routine. A young species might build a few stations or settle one or two planets, but expansion was slow. Technology grew slowly. Culture shifted slowly. There was rarely anything surprising, so the report sat in a queue for several days before anyone read it properly. When they finally examined the findings, confusion spread through the Imperial analysts. The scans showed a pattern that did not make sense. One planet was covered in huge cities that had grown in less than 2 centuries. Another planet had large agricultural systems arranged with almost artistic structure. A moon base showed signs of creative engineering that ignored typical safety models but somehow worked at full efficiency. Most strange of all, the outposts were built in places no sane species chose as their first colonies: frozen worlds, toxic atmospheres, asteroid clusters that needed heavy construction just to hold a habitat together. The Empire had a word for such behavior, but it had only used it a few times in its entire history: irregular. After a short discussion, the High Council decided to send a small patrol ship to investigate. Nothing serious, only a formal visit to gather real data. They expected a young species with low technology and simple communications. Many believed the humans would not even understand the Empire's language translators. The patrol ship arrived in the human star cluster and approached the first vessel it detected, a small human exploration ship. The Empire expected fear, or silence, or confused signals. What they received instead was a cheerful message broadcast immediately, as if humans had been waiting for them for years. "Hello. Welcome to our neighborhood. If you need help docking or mapping, just let us know." The Imperial crew stared at the translation on their screens. They checked their system twice, thinking something must be wrong. But no. The message was real. The humans sounded friendly, calm, totally unbothered by the sudden appearance of an unknown alien ship. Humans even offered assistance, as if meeting a new species was part of their weekly routine. The Empire replied with formal greetings, which humans responded to with casual politeness and several questions. They wanted to know everything: what the Empire was, how it was governed, what species were part of it, whether they could visit its libraries, and if the Empire had any interesting foods they could try someday. Human curiosity was not unusual by itself. Many young species were eager to learn. What surprised the Empire was the speed of human thinking. Humans asked new questions almost instantly after hearing answers. They learned patterns quickly, as if their minds jumped from idea to idea without stopping. Their conversation style was strange, full of small jokes and emotional warmth. They did not hide their feelings behind formality the way imperial cultures usually did. The observers wrote a short note. "Humans display unusually fast adaptation and high emotional expression. No sign of fear." The note was supposed to be neutral, but it worried some council members. A species without fear was unpredictable. 2 weeks later, after more observations, the Empire became even more confused. Human technology was advanced, but also chaotic. Their ships looked as if they were designed by several different minds with different goals. Some had clean, symmetrical structures. Others looked like they were built in a hurry, using whatever was available. Yet, all of them worked. Some designs even surpassed what the Empire considered normal for a young, spacefaring species. Their engines were efficient. Their communication systems reached long distances. Their scientific instruments were incredibly sensitive. But the strangest discovery was how quickly humans improved anything they touched. If introduced to a new idea, they modified it within days. If they encountered a problem, they solved it using methods the Empire considered unorthodox. They did not follow standard rules of engineering or science. They experimented constantly, trying new approaches without hesitation. One researcher wrote privately in her report, "Humans treat the universe like a puzzle, and they seem to enjoy solving every piece." After the initial contact, the Empire decided to run a containment show of force. This was a polite way of guiding a young species, showing them the Empire's size and strength so they would choose to join peacefully. Usually, this worked without trouble. Most species understood their place and accepted the Empire's guidance. A small intimidation fleet was sent, nothing that could harm humans, only enough to demonstrate seriousness. Standard procedure required the Empire to send a formal message before entering human territory. But before the Empire could send anything, a human transmission arrived first. "Hello again. We see you brought a bigger group this time. If you're here for diplomacy, we're happy to talk. But if it's for conquest or pressure, we kindly ask you to reconsider. Humans like peace, but we do not break easily." The message was strange because humans showed no fear, no aggression, and no confusion. It was calm, respectful, and firm. Humans sounded like a species that preferred harmony but also understood danger and was ready to respond if needed. The Imperial Council studied the message carefully. Some believed humans were bluffing. Others argued that humans were simply trying to protect their pride. But a few cultural analysts noticed something important: humans did not seem to bluff at all. Their words were direct, without hidden meanings or coded warnings. When humans said they preferred peace, they meant it. When they said they were not easy to break, they meant that too. Even more unsettling was the consistency in human behavior. Every colony, every station, every ship they contacted responded the same way. Friendly, open, and confident. It was as if the entire species shared a common message, even without a central authority telling them what to say. The Empire had no record of a species that responded to intimidation with gentle but steady resolve. But pride was an important part of imperial tradition. Many council members believed they had to maintain order. They could not allow a young, unpredictable species to set its own rules. They approved a mild occupation plan, mostly symbolic, meant to remind humans of the Empire's superior scale. Before the fleet could proceed, humans sent one final message: "This path leads to outcomes neither of us will enjoy. We promise that walking away is better for everyone." It was not a threat. It was a warning. And it was delivered with the same calm sincerity as every human communication so far. Some imperial leaders found it amusing. Others found it unsettling. But almost all of them agreed on one thing: the humans were unusual, and the Empire needed to understand them better. No one yet realized that this was only the beginning. The Empire was about to learn that humanity did not behave like any species they had encountered before. They were about to face a civilization that thrived in danger, adapted in seconds, and treated impossible challenges as everyday tasks. And the humans had warned them, kindly, politely, honestly. But the Empire did not know how to listen. The Galactic Empire had faced countless challenges in its long history. There were species that resisted their rule, but they were always eventually brought into line either through force or negotiation. But nothing about the humans' reaction to the Empire's warning felt like any challenge the Empire had ever faced before. When the Imperial fleet entered the human space sector, it was not with the heavy force they had once considered, but with a quiet, confident show of power. The fleet was large, with multiple warships and transport vessels, but it didn't take an aggressive posture. The Empire had learned by now that humans did not react the same way other species did. The High Council had assumed they would be cautious or frightened. But instead, the humans sent one message after another. each one filled with nothing but warmth and a quiet confidence. They never asked for the fleet to turn back. But they also never gave any sign of fear. "Welcome to our space," the first message said. "If you're here for peace, you will find a warm welcome. If you are here for conquest, you will find no resistance, only understanding. We believe in learning, not war." The words were simple, clear, and the tone was unsettling in its calmness. The Empire's diplomats, who had assumed they would meet resistance, instead found themselves in a very different kind of conversation. The humans didn't behave like the aggressive species the Empire had encountered. They didn't act fearful, nor did they seem to be scared into compliance. They were just different. The diplomats began to analyze the humans' communications further. In the past, when the Empire encountered a new species, they would study their language for subtle threats or hints of aggression. With humans, there were none. Everything they said was simple, straightforward, and without malice. The diplomats found no hidden meanings in their words, only an openness and kindness that was so rare in the galaxy that it was almost impossible to believe. A second message came through a few hours later. This one more direct. "We know your fleet has arrived, but we are not afraid. Please, if you want peace, you have only to ask." The Empire's lead diplomat, who had dealt with many species before, found himself feeling a strange sense of unease. Humans did not ask for anything in return. They did not demand respect or superiority, but neither did they offer it. It was as if they were speaking as equals, offering cooperation without fear of retribution. The fleet commander, still unsure of what to do, ordered a direct communication from one of the largest warships. His voice boomed with the weight of imperial authority. "We are the Galactic Empire. You will bow to our might and join us, or we will take control." The humans' response was immediate. No threats, no hostile words, just another simple message. "You may choose your path. We offer peace. If you choose conflict, we will adapt." You will find that humans do not give up easily. At this point, some of the Empire's officers were baffled. The humans were not backing down. But they weren't responding with the usual fiery anger or rebellion either. There were no weapons aimed at the fleet, no fleets of their own coming to confront the Empire. Instead, the humans calmly acknowledged the threat and quietly held their ground. In an effort to test the humans, the Empire decided to test their technology. They knew that one of the most telling signs of a species' readiness for war was their level of technological development. The Empire deployed a signal jammer, a device meant to disrupt any form of communication near one of the human colonies, to see how the humans would react. The humans, once again, responded not with panic or fear, but with efficiency. A message came through. "We have detected interference in our communications. Please fix it if you wish. We have the means to adapt to this." The message was delivered with no sense of alarm, only an acknowledgement of the situation and a request for help. The Empire did not expect this. They had never faced a species that handled these types of problems with such calm detachment. The Empire had expected them to scramble, to struggle, to react with confusion. Instead, the humans had already solved the issue themselves, turning the situation into an opportunity for cooperation rather than conflict. In the following weeks, the Empire received more messages from the humans. They were filled with simple, yet elegant ideas. Humans did not seek war, nor did they seek to conquer others. What they truly seemed to want was collaboration. "We have faced many challenges," one message read, "and we have always found ways to overcome them. We believe we can solve anything together. Do you?" It was clear now. The humans were not afraid of the Empire, nor did they seek to destroy it. They simply wanted a chance to exist and grow. In fact, they seemed to believe that every challenge was something to be overcome. Not with violence, but with understanding. A meeting was scheduled to discuss the next steps. Representatives from both sides came together to discuss what the future might hold. The Empire sent its most seasoned diplomats, while the humans sent scientists, engineers, and philosophers, ordinary citizens from their colonies, not military officers. The humans did not seem to see themselves as an inferior species, nor did they see the Empire as a threat that needed to be conquered. It was an uncomfortable realization for the Imperial diplomats, who were used to species seeing the Empire as an unstoppable force. The human representatives were polite but firm. They spoke openly about their belief in peaceful progress. "We don't need violence to grow," one of the human scientists said. "We have learned to adapt and solve problems together. You can be part of that progress, or you can stand in the way. But we will keep moving forward, either way." For the first time in years, the Empire was confronted with a species that simply didn't want to be ruled. They didn't want to fight, but neither did they want to submit. They wanted to coexist, but on their terms. And the Empire didn't know how to react. Over the following months, the humans began to make their intentions clearer. They offered technologies of their own, ones that were advanced, but simple solutions to problems the Empire had never thought to solve. They shared ideas about energy sources that were far more efficient than anything the Empire had, and medical advancements that could heal injuries faster than Imperial medicine. What shocked the Empire the most was the way humans treated each other. The Imperial fleet commander, having had a few chances to observe human society up close, noticed something remarkable. Humans worked together. There was no hierarchy in the way they spoke to each other. No clear division of power. Everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, was treated with respect. Everyone had something to contribute, and unlike the Empire, which controlled everything through military force and tradition, humans seemed to function because of their creativity and teamwork. As the Empire watched, it began to realize that humans were not a species to be conquered or controlled. They were a species that could change everything, not through force, but through ideas, through resilience, and through the power of their collective will. The fleet commander sent a report back to the High Council. "We have underestimated them. They are not weak. They are not afraid. They do not fight like us. They solve problems, and they do it faster than we do. If we push them, we risk losing everything." It was a moment of clarity that shook the very foundations of the Empire. The High Council didn't know it yet, but the real test was only just beginning. Humans had warned the Empire. But now, the galaxy was about to witness what happened when humanity truly set its sights on the stars. The Galactic Empire was used to being in control. Their fleets could crush rebellions, their diplomats could convince even the most stubborn species to submit, and their technological advancements were unmatched. They had ruled for millennia with an almost unshakable confidence. But now, facing humanity, the Empire was starting to question everything they knew about power. The humans had been nothing like the species the Empire had conquered in the past. They didn't bow. They didn't cower. And they didn't retreat when faced with threats. Instead, they stood firm, offering nothing but peaceful cooperation and clever solutions. They didn't react the way the Empire expected. They didn't even seem to understand fear the same way other species did. One of the most troubling realizations came when the Empire tried to apply its usual methods of intimidation. A small group of Empire diplomats, stationed in human colonies, were sent to deliver an ultimatum. The message was clear: join the Empire or face consequences. The humans were accustomed to these types of demands, so the Empire assumed they would comply. But once again, the humans surprised them. Instead of panic or defiance, the human diplomats gave a calm response. "We have no interest in violence. If you wish to negotiate, we will listen. But if you are here to force us into something we do not want, we will not comply. We do not break under pressure. We choose to work together, not under force." The response was straightforward, but it sent shockwaves through the Imperial team. They were used to species either surrendering or rebelling. But humans didn't fit into either category. They simply stood their ground. The Empire had never met a species that approached challenges like this. They had always been able to use force as a final option. But it seemed that with the humans, that was not a possibility. If the Empire wanted to control them, it would need to find another way, one that didn't involve war. Humanity's response to the Empire's tactics made one thing clear. Humans didn't want to fight, but they would defend what was theirs. and they would never surrender their freedom. In one of the colonies, an imperial diplomat tried to ask a human leader why they seemed so certain that they could stand up to the Empire. The human leader, a woman in her mid-40s, smiled and answered simply, "We have faced worse than anything you can bring. Our history is full of struggles, both internal and external. But no matter what, we always come together to solve it. We never stop moving forward. It's just who we are." That answer left the imperial diplomat speechless. The idea of a species that was used to hardship, that had survived conflicts and setbacks without crumbling, was alien to him. Most species the Empire encountered either relied on brute force or diplomacy to survive. But humans, they relied on something deeper: their unity and their creativity. As the weeks passed, the Empire watched humans from a distance, studying their societies. What they saw surprised them even more. Humans had built a civilization not through the dominance of a single ruling class, but through collaboration. People from all walks of life, all backgrounds, worked together on equal terms. Scientists worked alongside teachers, engineers alongside farmers. Everyone had a role, but no one was more important than anyone else. There was a mutual respect that the Empire could not understand. The Empire's researchers couldn't make sense of it. Every time they thought they understood how humans worked, they found something new to challenge their assumptions. For example, they had expected to find a rigid hierarchy, a strong central government, or a military that operated like their own. But none of that existed in the same way the Empire was used to. Instead, the humans had a complex network of cooperative systems, with no single leader holding all the power. Every decision seemed to be a joint effort based on collective reasoning. It was as though the humans had perfected the art of working together, something the Empire had never prioritized. But the most striking difference came when the Empire tried to understand human emotions. In imperial culture, emotions were often seen as weaknesses. People were taught to suppress their feelings, to maintain control, and to make decisions based on logic and efficiency. But the humans were different. They openly expressed their emotions: joy, frustration, hope, fear. And yet, they remained incredibly productive. They worked together through empathy, something the Empire had never fully understood. The Empire's top psychologist, Dr. Zareen, conducted an experiment to better understand this. She spent weeks studying human interactions, both formal and informal. What she found left her shocked. Humans seemed to rely on their emotional intelligence more than their intellectual prowess alone. Their ability to understand and connect with each other on a personal level made them more adaptable and cooperative. When they faced challenges, it was not just their technology or strength that helped them succeed. It was their ability to understand each other's needs, to work together to find solutions, and to support one another in times of crisis. It was a trait that no other species in the Empire had ever shown to this degree. And it was something the Empire had never considered important until now. Dr. Zareen wrote in her report, "Humans are not just a species of individuals, they are a species of connections. Their strength lies in their ability to work together as a whole. This is something the Empire does not yet understand." The more the Empire studied humans, the more they realized that the strength of humanity lay not in its military power, not in its technology, and not even in its individual brilliance, but in its unity. The Empire's High Council was divided. Some members insisted that humanity had to be conquered, that it was simply another species that needed to be brought into the fold. But others, who had observed the humans more closely, began to understand that the Empire could not simply control them. They could not break their spirit, nor could they force them into submission. The humans had already decided that they would not bow down. The Empire had always believed in its supremacy, in its unquestionable rule over the galaxy. But facing humanity, they began to see that the humans were not the ones who needed the Empire. It was the Empire that needed them. The realization was staggering. One of the council members, who had studied the humans' medical advancements, put it bluntly, "They are not like us. They do not need us to survive. They will survive on their own, even if we do nothing." In fact, The more we push, the more they will adapt, and they will leave us behind. Another member responded, "We cannot control them with force. They have already shown us that. But if we want to remain relevant, we must change. We must learn from them." The High Council knew that the next steps would determine the future of the Empire. They could not ignore the lessons humanity had taught them, nor could they continue their old ways. They had to find a way to cooperate with the humans, to respect their approach, or risk losing everything. But the Empire had never been good at change. The humans, meanwhile, continued on their path. They were not concerned with what the Empire would do. They knew that, in the end, they would always find a way to adapt, to grow, and to move forward together. The Galactic Empire, once so sure of its authority, had begun to feel a strange sense of unease. They had underestimated humanity, thinking that their own might would force humans into submission. But they had been wrong. Over the past few months, they had learned something they had never expected to learn about a species. Humans were not afraid. They were not afraid of power. They were not afraid of threats. And they would never be bullied into submission. The Empire's High Council, for the first time in centuries, was uncertain. The idea of cooperating with humanity had been considered, but many still believed that the Empire could and should be in control. After all, the Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia. What could a relatively young species like humans teach them? And yet, every action and every word from humanity made it clearer. This was not a species that could be forced. The humans, for their part, had not pushed. They had not made any demands. Instead, they continued their quiet campaign of cooperation. Every time the Empire attempted to impose its authority, the humans responded with calm, logical arguments, and peaceful offers. They did not retaliate with weapons or threats, but with reason, creativity, and unwavering confidence. And slowly, it was beginning to wear down the Empire's resolve. In one of the many diplomatic meetings between the two, the human delegation spoke again. This time with a tone that was different. There was still no anger in their words, but there was a sense of quiet urgency. "We have tried to be patient," the human representative said, standing tall before the Imperial diplomats. "We have warned you that we do not want war. But we will not submit to oppression. The choice is now in your hands. You can walk away peacefully, or we will move forward without you." For a moment, there was silence in the room. The Empire's diplomats exchanged uneasy glances. The human message was simple, but it carried a weight that no one in the room could ignore. They were asking for peace, but they were also warning that the Empire would not win if it chose war. The humans were confident, calm, and clear. They would adapt, they would survive, and they would thrive whether or not the Empire was a part of their future. "Your warning is noted," one of the Imperial diplomats replied, his voice heavy with doubt. "But you must understand, humans, that the Empire does not bow to threats. We are the rulers of the galaxy. Our power is unmatched." The human representative nodded slowly, as if understanding something that the Imperial diplomat could not. "We do not need to bow. We do not seek your power. But we do ask that you understand this. We are not like the others you have conquered. We will not fall to fear, and we will not yield to your might. The path you are choosing now will have consequences. We have no intention of fighting you, but we will fight for our right to exist." The human delegation made it clear. They were offering a chance to walk away. The Empire could leave, and humanity would continue on its path. But if the Empire continued on its current course, pushing the humans further into a corner, the outcome would not be what the Empire had predicted. The humans had the ability to adapt, to think quickly, and to find solutions that others could not. The Empire could never have predicted what that could mean. The Empire's High Council met in private to discuss what had been said. For hours, they debated the next steps. Some members wanted to press the humans harder, to force them into submission. Others, however, had begun to see the truth in the humans' words. There was a growing sense that humanity was not the kind of species that could be controlled, and that perhaps the Empire had miscalculated. One of the council members, an older and wiser diplomat named Councillor Rethos, stood up slowly and addressed the room. His voice was calm, but there was a certain weight to it that commanded attention. I have been a part of this empire for many years. I have seen species bow to us, and I have seen those who resist fall to our might. But I have never seen anything like this. The humans, they are not like us. They do not fear power. They do not fear war. They do not even fear failure. They are a species that thrives on their ability to adapt and overcome. They are not a species to be conquered. He paused, looking around the room, letting his words sink in. We can push them, yes. We can force them into submission. But I believe that if we do, we will make a grave mistake. The humans have already warned us. They have offered us a choice. But if we continue down this path, we will not only lose a valuable ally, we will lose a species that could change everything. They will not break under our might. They will grow stronger. There was a long silence in the room as the council members pondered the gravity of what Councillor Rethos had said. For the first time, it was clear to them that this was not a situation that could be solved with force. The humans had made their point. They had shown that they were a species capable of survival, capable of growth, and capable of achieving what others thought impossible. The Empire was not used to walking away from anything. But in this case, the humans had made it clear that there was only one way forward. The Empire had to change, or it would lose everything. It was then that the decision was made. The High Council sent a final message to humanity, one that would echo across the galaxy. We have heard your warning. We understand now that we cannot conquer you. We cannot force you into submission. We offer peace, not as conquerors, but as equals. Let us work together for the future of the galaxy. The message was not delivered with pride. It was delivered with humility. For the first time in history, the Empire had acknowledged that there were species beyond their control, and that there were species worth respecting not because of their power, but because of their resilience, their creativity, and their ability to adapt in ways the Empire had never anticipated. Humanity received the message calmly, without surprise. They had always known that peace was the way forward. They had always known that they did not need to fight to survive, but they also knew that they would not yield. They had warned the Empire, and the Empire had listened. Thank you for hearing us, the human leader replied in a message sent to the Empire. We are not afraid. We are not weak. And we believe that together, we can build a future better than anything either of us could achieve alone. From that moment on, the Empire and humanity began to chart a new path. They did not become allies overnight, but they began to work together, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and finding ways to thrive in the galaxy as equals. The galaxy had changed. The Empire had learned a lesson it would never forget. When humanity warns you to run, you listen. Because if you don't, you will soon find yourself left behind. And the humans? They continued to grow, to learn, and to explore, knowing that, no matter what happened, they would face the future together.